Hey guys, and welcome to the Hobby News. Alright, so we've got some pre-orders up for, I guess, this coming weekend, and it's Necromunda all the way, plus a little bit of I guess, some news for the coming week. We've got like an online Warhammer Fest again, I think like they did last year and maybe even the year before that. I guess since COVID and stuff has started, they've been doing this. So yeah, we've got some, I guess, a timeline of what's going to happen on each day. So we'll take a look at that at the end. But I thought to start with, we'll just get into this Necromunda stuff because, yeah, it's really interesting. We had a look at it before and, you know, we've got vehicles now, you know, mounted units, things like that for Necromunda, which is a big change. You know, Necromunda was always just, you know, gang warfare, small war bands, that sort of thing. And now we're expanding it out. It's almost like they've combined the old game Gorka Morka or something like that with Necromunda. So you've got this sort of, yeah, bigger scope kind of level for Necromunda, which could be a good thing or a bad thing, who knows? I think it's tricky to balance. I'm sure it'll be tied to scenarios and things like that. I don't know how you would just do random missions or whatever and just include vehicles, but I'm sure they're going to have points and that sort of thing. So for those that play Necromunda, I'm sure you know more than me. Yeah, so let's get into this. So Sunday preview, head out on the highway with Necromunda Ashways. Yeah, so we'll take a look, and it shows the box game here, which we've had a look at before. You know, you've got a pretty nice selection of terrain and models here. I mean, if you had the other ones and that sort of thing, you could do some really fun dioramas and sort of more scenic boards rather than this sort of flat mat. You could do some really interesting things. One of the great things about these smaller sub games is the potential to do sort of not really fixed terrain, but kind of more elaborate sort of style terrain. I remember back in the day when I was working for GW back in the early 2000s, we would do when Mordheim was around. So, which is, for anyone that doesn't know, is based on the old world, the Warhammer Old World. That's fantasy, and it was like gang warfare for that. So sort of like the fantasy version of Necromunda. And I remember being in the store, and we built you can do sort of like multi levels, as you see with a lot of Necromunda terrain, like Hive City sort of stuff. Well, we tried to do that with Mordheim. So I would build, you know, you've got the buildings above, and then you would build foam, like a depth on the table, and then you would cut into it to do, you know, canals and so on under the roads, and you'd have removable roads, that sort of thing. And then below in the basements of the buildings, if you remove the buildings, you would have little basements and alcoves that would then lead out into the sewers and so on. So you get like multi-leveled kind of gameplay, so up and down. So you get verticality, and that was really fun. You know, like in those days, you know, the stores got allocated a certain amount of petty cash, that sort of thing, and you could go and, like, you know, purchase, like, you know, materials to do that. So we even poured resin into the canals and everything. You'd never see that today. Like, that's a long time ago. That's like, yeah, I'm showing my age by talking about it, but it was really fun. You know, you had like put little rats in there and everything, and give it that kind of really cool, you know, old world sort of sewer system sort of thing. And it was always cool when like the customers would come in and they'd get a chance to take a look at that, and it was really different. You know, it gave you that opportunity to create something unique. And with Necromunda, it's the same thing. You know, you can really go to town on how much effort you want to put into not just playing on that horizontal plane, but the vertical axis as well, right? So you can do towers and sort of multi-level kind of constructions and have little removable pieces and so on. And so it's not all fixed, you know what I mean? And yeah, just give yourself something more interesting. So to see how vehicles and mounted units will play into that type of gameplay, I'm not quite sure. But yeah, I mean, it's fun. Like these little hab units and so on could be done in a really fun way into sort of, you know, a rock face or cliff sort of scenario, that sort of thing. Yeah, so that's pretty cool. So we've seen these warbands before, but I'll probably show them up close here so we can take another look. And as I said, yeah, these sort of little pieces, the gangway sort of little sections and so on, are also really good for that sort of terrain building. Yeah, that's cool. And we've got the books and so on, and then yeah, these warbands. So this is a nice little picture of them. So yeah, I think as I talked about it before, these are primed for some Chaos Cultists, right? Like you know, Nurgle Cultists, that sort of thing. Really anything. This could be for, you know, agnostic game systems as well, one-page rules, that sort of thing. You could do some great stuff with these models. So I think they're really onto something here to explore the Necromundian world and the other kinds of factions and unique creatures and characters that could exist there, not just, you know, in the hive cities and the main gangs. Like, branching out is really interesting. And you can see that in the designs and in the sculpts. The sculptors would have had a good time with these and really playing around with a lot of I guess sci-fi genre. What would you call that? Sort of like in the zeitgeist, things that inspire us, right? It's like Star Wars and Star Trek and all those kinds of other intellectual properties that are out there that we all love. And you can see that love here in these. The designers have tried to pay homage to a lot of that type of design in their own. So that's really cool because that'd be a lot of fun to paint in those sort of color schemes as well. And then we've got these little insect walkers, which are really interesting. It's a very odd design. This sort of reminds me of Rogue Trader days. Again, showing my age, but this is the sort of thing that would have come out in the 80s, right? This type of design and sort of wacky creature that's very sort of asymmetrical in a lot of ways and has a lot of sort of odd shaped limbs and so on. Not a usual kind of slick, modern design for a creature that you might get these days. This is definitely pushing more of that nostalgia idea. Possibly it might have even been inspired by some old artwork, who knows, because it does feel like that, this kind of shape, especially in this head with the large eye and so on. The designers and the sculptors are definitely referencing something from an earlier time. There's a lot of even sort of a little bit of Jim Henson in this, like puppetry or something going on here that's not quite the usual look, which is great. That's awesome. That's another fresh sort of injection of ideas coming into 40K, which is otherwise kind of not exactly stagnant, but it's hard to break the mold of what's already there. It's been established for the past 30 years. They're trying. You can see that certainly with fantasy. The beginnings of Age of Sigmar and so on. They've tried to push away from certain themes and find some new ones. And for the most part, it's been pretty successful. Age of Sigmar is a great bunch of models. They've done some really, really unique stuff that they otherwise probably would never have sculpted or designed. So that's cool. So I can see it here for these for sure. So yeah, all good. And then we've got obviously cards and so on. And then these great buggies, which, is going to be in every Orc army ever once these are released, as long as they're not too expensive. They're great, right? This just reminds me of Lego and, those sort of toys, right? Like that's exactly what this is, and making your little cool characters on the back and so on. There's going to be so many conversions of these. And that's great. Like that's exactly the sort of thing that, I would imagine that most hobbyists, including myself, would want, this type of stuff for doing little funky conversions. It's pretty cool. Yeah, and the riders and everything are fun. They got some cool little details. There'll be a lot of conversions you could do with those as well. Basically, a good box for kit bashing, right? So yeah, pretty good. Let's see what else they give you. Oh, they give you a map as well. That's pretty cool. So you get the broader area, not just the hive, which is really nice. That's never really been seen before, I don't think. I can't remember whether they did any kind of larger maps beyond the hives. That's really cool. And then we've even got an upgrade kit. It's nice to see. Lots of heads. They've done this, I think, for Necromunda from the beginning. A lot of like upgrade kits and things like that. But this looks like one that's more around the ash waste. So you've got like little backpacks and all these little heads with the gas mask. That's cool. That's going to be fun to muck around with also. And then we've got our usual black library. Got to have those books. So there's tons of that there for you if you're into that. A lot of stories here. So that's really cool. So I think. Now we'll take a little look at this I guess unique character they've got for the Ash Waste faction, these sort of nomads. It's kind of interesting. So we've got a Stormcaller, they call it. So yeah, I'd say it's some kind of wizard or something like that. I'm not quite sure, but let's see what they say anything about it. So in the ash-choked wilderness of Necromunda, visibility is everything. When your gang's been hired to guard a merchant guard caravan, there are countless very real threats lurking just out of sight. So when a storm closes in and you hide your attackers from view, you're going to need more than photo goggles and the headlights of your tricked out doom buggy. Why? Because those storms aren't natural. They're summoned by mystics of the Ash Waste nomads, dubbed I'm not even going to say that word, or stormcallers. Okay, so these are sort of like, I guess, quasi-psychers, something like that. I guess they're calling them shamanic warriors, I suppose. So yeah, I don't know exactly I'd imagine it's some sort of latent psychic ability, right? That's more what it is in 40k. I would imagine it's not connected to chaos, although it could be, who knows? But if it's some kind of low-level latent psychic ability, I would imagine is going on with these shaman kind of characters. But that's really cool too. So they're touching on some of the not so condoned aspects of the Imperium. They don't like Psych as much, and to have these little guys running around freely casting I guess spells and creating storms is kind of unique. I'm not sure how that fits in with Inquisition and so on, but anyway, that's pretty cool. So yeah, it's a really fun one. So this is like I guess a more elaborate version of this sort of creature, slightly bigger. We've got like a lot of various things attached to the top of it. That's pretty interesting. I don't know if it's actually bigger or not. Maybe it's the same size. It feels like that's a little bit bigger than the other one, than the standard ones. But yeah, really fun. That's got a whole lot of cool ideas going on. We've got the skulls underneath. Yeah, I like that a lot. That could be a really fun conversion project. I can really see this being used in Magickin and Nurgle armies for AOS. That's like begging to be done, right? This type of walker, that's perfect. You can do some really interesting things with this, and I'm sure there will be many. I may even try one. We'll see what happens. But yeah, I noticed this before. So when I was looking, I came and I looked at the website first, obviously, before recording this, and came across this, which was really interesting. So this type of artwork is, I guess, what most of us my age grew up on, the 80s and 90s. Early Games Workshop art looked like this. A lot of black and white stuff, a lot of drawn work. And yeah, I like that they're putting this in here. So they've done this a few times with their articles where they're like giving you a lot of old art or sort of, I guess, more retro inspired art, or even actual art from those eras to sort of go along with the new designs. They did that with the Eldar and so on. So yeah, I really like that. I think this captures, I guess, the essence a lot of what we love about sci-fi and fantasy, or at least I do, and I know a lot of others do. You can tell me what you think in the comments if you think that that's correct, but it's this type of, I don't know, this has something about it, this black and white stuff. This is like very, I guess, reminiscent of early Adrian Smith art. Well, Adrian Smith art in general, right? He really like nailed the black and white art for Warhammer, I think anyway, at least within the fantasy side of it. His Chaos Warriors and all that kind of stuff is amazing. If you haven't seen anything of Adrian Smith, look him up. He has his own, I guess, graphic novel called Chronicles of Hate. You should definitely have a look at that. It's amazing. And it's basically, I guess, his take on Chaos Warriors, Marauders, that kind of Chaos Waste kind of idea, but in his own world and done in his way. They're just amazing. Like the images and the drawings that he does is just like awesome. And it's all with this really vivid black and white, like the values in this sketch are great, and it's very reminiscent of his style, like deep blacks, lots of really good contrast, very stark kind of imagery, the form language of the shapes themselves are really dynamic and very brooding, and it just goes on and on and on. You get lost in his images. You can tell I'm a fan. So yeah, if you want to see some really good grimdark art, just look up Adrian Smith, Chronicles of Hate, and just go from there, and you'll find some amazing images that will take you down a little rabbit hole that will probably last for hours. But it's really good inspiration for this type of hobby, getting into the idea of what this kind of world is like, whether it be in the fantasy one, Age of Sigmar, or Warhammer 40k, or even Heresy. This is like the perfect, I think, medium to show it, these black and white drawn images. And yeah, this is a great attempt. You can feel the Adrian Smith inspiration coming through from this drawing. I don't think it's Adrian Smith art, but it definitely has that vibe. For anyone that's into Adrian Smith, I'm sure you'd agree, right? Yeah, I really love that about these particular articles when they put that in, because it really gets you into the world of what this all is. And because the heavy metal paint jobs are very beautiful and clean, it doesn't really capture, if you look at the image here, it doesn't really capture the grittiness of what this is, the sort of the stark reality of what's going on here. In this, we get a slightly more softer image, which the paint job is beautiful and great, and I love that style. I paint in a very similar way. If you look at anything on the channel, any of my my painting tutorials, you can see I'm heavily inspired by that style, that, you know, I guess late 80s, 90s, early 2000s kind of a heavy metal style of paint job, with all these little crisp lines and everything. That's definitely something that yeah, attracts me a lot, and you know, you see it here, but it doesn't always capture the reality of what those Warhammer worlds are, and here you get it in the art. So yeah, pretty cool. I won't waffle on too long on that, but yeah, I'm pretty stoked that they're showing that. That's great. And then finally we have the Warhammer Fest stuff. So this is going on next week, I guess, 4th to the 7th of May. We've got this online thing again. We've got a special model, I guess, they're going to release, and then we've got the different days here. So Warhammer 40k on Wednesday, the 4th, and then we've got Age of Sigmar on the Thursday, on the 5th. Then we've got the sub games on the Friday, and then on the Saturday the 7th we've got Horus Heresy. So yeah, that's going to be really fun to see that. I think a lot of the rumors say that we're probably going to see possibly Skaven and Sylvaneth on the Age of Sigmar day. I'm not sure what we're going to get for 40k, possibly more Chaos or whatever's going to come next. And then obviously for Heresy, it's going to be probably more of the new plastics, and maybe even, you know, some kind of showcase of the new box game, that sort of thing, possibly, because we know that's coming this year. And then who knows what it's going to be for the sub games. Could be anything, right? So yeah, pretty interesting. It's going to be good, I think. Yeah, if we have a look at the flags here. Okay, so this is giving us a hint. So we've got squats, possibly. We've got yeah, the Sylvaneth stuff, and probably, let's see, do we see some Skaven? I don't know if there's Skaven there, maybe. Well, there's definitely Chaos. So this is a good sort of indication of potentially what we might see on this week. So that's great. And hopefully I'll be able to do some videos for that too. So we'll see how we go. But I hope you've enjoyed this. Please hit that like button, subscribe button. It really helps me out. And I guess I'll catch you on the next one.